At 2:40 a.m., the silence over Russia was broken. It wasn't an explosion. It was something far more terrifying. It was a cascade of failures. A clandestine Ukrainian mission, so audacious it bordered on suicidal, was about to expose a truth the Kremlin had spent billions to hide. This is not the story of a clean strike. This is the story of how a single pilot, flying a Soviet-era MiG-29 with one failed engine and a paper map, panicked Russia's entire air defense system, and turned its own multi-million-dollar shields against itself. What happened that night at Berezovka wasn't just an explosion. It was a collapse. We don't just tell the stories of the war. We dissect the failures, the ironies, and the sheer human courage that changed the outcome. If you want to understand how the world's most expensive technology can be defeated by improvisation, you are in the right place. Stay with us to see every second of this cascading failure. The mission was almost impossible from the start. A lone Ukrainian MiG-29, flying at treetop level, below the detection threshold of long-range radars. Its objective, a vital supply post at Berezovka, identified as an ammunition logistics node. Its weapons, two French-provided Hammer precision-guided bombs. The pilot faced immediate challenges. Russian electronic warfare jammed his GPS, forcing him to navigate visually. Fuel was so limited, there was only one attempt. Then, at 2:41 a.m., the mission nearly failed catastrophically. Flying at 650 kilometers per hour, the aircraft suffered a bird strike. A crow was ingested by the left engine intake, destroying the compressor blades spinning at 13,000 revolutions per minute. The engine stalled. The severe asymmetric thrust sent the plane lurching, diving toward the forest. The pilot reacted instinctively. Full right rudder. Pulled the stick. Hit the engine restart switch. His altitude plummeted. The auto-restart sequence needed 30 seconds. The pilot had less than 10 before impact. Simultaneously, the event was briefly registered by Russian air defenses. At the Klemovo airbase, an operator monitoring a Podlet K-1 low-altitude radar noted an intermittent contact. He'd seen fleeting contacts for the past few minutes, the MiG dipping between valleys. Just as the operator achieved a radar lock, the contact vanished again as the MiG dropped during the emergency. The lock lasted only 6 seconds. Not enough. The operator assessed the contact as an anomaly, perhaps ground clutter or another flock of cranes. He hesitated, chose not to file a report, and took a scheduled break. That decision, based on an incomplete radar picture, proved fatal for them. Minutes later, just 140 meters above the ground, the MiG's damaged left engine reignited. The pilot stabilized the aircraft. The engine was severely damaged, running at maybe 30% efficiency. The near crash consumed critical time and fuel, dwindling the pilot's reserve from 12 minutes to just 3. And then, a new, unmapped threat appeared. High-voltage transmission cables, 60 meters above the valley. At 650 kilometers per hour, the pilot had 2 seconds to react. He executed a 5G pull-up, clearing the top wire by less than 10 meters. By the time the pilot pressed on, the Podlet K-1 radar station was in a shift change. The intermittent contact was logged, but not actioned. The pilot reached his final checkpoint. With one damaged engine and fuel for a single pass, he prepared for the attack. At 2:45 a.m., the pilot pulled the MiG-29 into a near-vertical climb. This risky toss-bombing maneuver lobs the bombs on a high ballistic trajectory, allowing the plane to strike from outside the range of point defense systems. But it made the aircraft visible. The steep climb announced the MiG's presence to every air defense system within a 200 kilometers radius. This is where the plan begins to unravel, and it's exactly why it was so devastating. Every system designed to work failed, and every failure created the next. You are about to see how one pilot, fighting G-force and a hypersonic missile, unwittingly set the perfect trap. As the pilot endured 6 gs, his vision grayed. At 6,500 meters, he was semi-conscious. And then, the weapons interface failed. The French bombs, connected to the Soviet-era MiG via a non-standard interface, failed. The weapons panel displayed liaison error. While the pilot, struggling with oxygen deprivation, cycled backup switches, a new threat emerged. 72 kilometers away, a Russian Su-35 fighter, investigating the earlier radar anomaly, locked onto the climbing MiG. The Russian pilot fired an R-37M hypersonic air-to-air missile. The MiG's radar warning receiver shrieked. Missile approaching at 2 kilometers per second. Intercept in 36 seconds. The Ukrainian pilot couldn't evade yet. Ignoring the failed digital interface, he found the physical emergency pickle buttons. At the 8,000-meter release point, he smashed them. The bombs dropped. Now, he could defend himself. He rolled inverted and executed a 9G split S, diving back to Earth. The pilot blacked out for 2 seconds. When his vision returned, he was diving through 4,000 meters. The R-37M missile was still tracking. The pilot's countermeasures failed. The chaff dispenser jammed. With no decoys, he executed the final notch maneuver, turning the MiG perpendicular to the missile. The R-37M's Doppler radar, programmed to filter out stationary objects, interpreted the target as an error and broke lock. The hypersonic missile passed 100 meters behind the MiG and self-destructed. Meanwhile, the two hammer bombs began their 4-minute ballistic fall toward Bela Berezovka. They now faced their own defenses and their own malfunctions. Problem 1. Propulsion failure. The first bomb's motor ingested contaminated fuel. It produced only 60% thrust. The bomb's computer calculated it would fall 2 kilometers short. Problem 2. Electronic warfare. A Russian Kasuka 4 vehicle flooded the GPS frequencies. Both bombs lost satellite navigation and reverted to inertial navigation. But that system drifts, projecting a 480-meter miss. Problem 3. The Sun. The second bomb's infrared seeker activated and immediately locked onto the Sun, which was directly in its path. The sensor was saturated. The bomb flew blind for 15 crucial seconds. Russian ground defenses tried to intervene. An S-400 battery detected the 2 small contacts. The operator, unsure, but following orders, fired 2 missiles. It was futile. The S-400 is designed for predictable targets, not munitions in ballistic freefall. The missiles failed. But at 2,000 meters altitude, the bomb's internal logic recovered. The first bomb, now out of the Sun's glare, activated its IR seeker and immediately locked onto the heat signatures of 3 BTR-82A armored vehicles, parked with their engines running. The second bomb, still blinded, initiated its backup guidance, contrast-based pattern matching. Ignoring heat, it searched for the building's distinctive geometric roof shape. And it found it. Both bombs were now locked, diving vertically. The final layer of Russian defense, a Panzer S-1 system, acquired them. 8 seconds to impact. The Panzer's radar locked the bombs. The attack profile, 87 degrees. The operator had not trained for this. The system's computer displayed target outside engagement zone. The flaw was in the design. At 900 meters altitude, the bombs were already inside the Panzer's minimum missile engagement range, 1,200 meters. The missiles needed 1.5 seconds of flight to arm their fuses. The bombs would impact in 2.9 seconds. The operator fired 4 missiles anyway. The physics was absolute. The missile's fuses armed at 400 meters altitude, just as the bombs passed below them. The operator, in a panic, defaulted to the Panzer's 30mm cannons. The guns swiveled up but hit their physical elevation limit at 85 degrees. The bombs were still at 87 degrees. The operator could only watch as thousands of rounds passed fractionally behind the munitions. At 2:51 a.m., the first bomb impacted, punching through the roof. The charge detonated, and the shockwave cut through every load-bearing wall on the building's north side. The structure didn't collapse. It toppled over. 17 seconds later, the second bomb struck the corner of the vehicle base. The blast ruptured the fuel tanks of 3 adjacent BTRs. 1,500 liters of diesel mixed with the air. The bomb's charge provided the ignition. A catastrophic fuel-air explosion vaporized the vehicles. The Ukrainian MiG-29, critically damaged and low on fuel, escaped and returned. The mission was a tactical success. But more importantly, it was a cascading failure on both sides. The Ukrainian pilot succeeded by navigating an engine failure, equipment malfunctions, and a hypersonic missile attack through sheer improvisation. Conversely, Russia's multi-layered, multi-billion-dollar air defense network failed completely. Not from a lack of technology, but because the attack profile, a combination of the pilot's emergency stall and the high-risk ballistic toss, presented a scenario the system's logic and its operators were not prepared to counter. The Kremlin panicked that night because its most expensive shields didn't just fail to protect them. They failed in a way that became part of the kill chain itself. What we learn here is that in modern war, the rigidity of technology is sometimes its greatest weakness. We will continue to analyze these critical failures. If you want to understand the real stories behind the technology of war, join our community. The next failure is already happening.